Good evening, everybody. Hello and welcome to the Open Door Show. Great to have you here this evening with us, as always. My name's Ritchie Clapson, if you didn't know, but I'm here with the other half of Property CEO, Mr. Ian Child.
Good evening, everybody. I've noticed it doesn't say Mr. Ian Child. I've got a new name for this evening.
Yes, he's got a bit of techie issues there. He can't change his name from Property CEO Support, but that's what he is. He's just a support member of the team. Anyway, guys, it's great to have you here. Just in case this is your first time, it looks like there's a few names on there that I'm not aware of. What have you let yourself in for? Well, we have about 45 minutes of non-stop positivity. Lots of stuff going on out there in the world at the moment, but in here, in these virtual four walls, it's all about positivity and all around the theme of business and property development. Isn't that right, Ian?
It certainly is. For our considerable sins, we run a company called propertyCEO. Basically, our job is to train people how to become successful small-scale property developers. So lots of amazing opportunities out there right now, particularly for new developers, people getting into it for the first time. So we want to help people find out more about those opportunities and, yeah, see if development might be a good fit for them.
That's right. And of course, you know, global pandemic, recession, no recession, who knows what's going on. But there are always opportunities out there. Now, those that have been hearing me speak recently, I was on a few webinars this week. I've been presenting to people, been asked to present at a meeting in Crawley just recently, talking about what's happening, where the opportunities are in 2021. And those opportunities are out there, but only for those that go and seek them out rather than just sort of sit and wait for everything else to fall into place. Back in 2008, a lot of people made a lot of money in that recession. A lot of developers were very successful. In 2020, 2021, there will be a lot of very successful developers. If you want to be one of them, there's nothing like the timing you have got now. So anyway, we'll be serving up advice, predictions, a bit of training. Above all, we're going to have a bit of fun doing it. Happy to take questions. It is a question and answer show. Don't put any questions in, we will struggle as always, but you never let us down. You always put questions in. So please pop your questions in the chat box and we will pick them up as we go through. And today we thought we'd do ourselves an Ask Us Anything. Because quite often we focus in on a subject or we have a guest in, and I think every now and then we're going to do Ask Us Anything, so you can throw anything in, and it has actually generated some interesting questions already this week that have come in, so you're more than welcome to put your questions in before the show and we will pick them up. So who's on this evening? There's a bunch of you on. There's people still signing on as we speak, which is good. Yvonne's just signed on. Hello, Yvonne. Michael, Peter, Raj, Ranjit, Sumi's on, Debs is on, Debs and Rich, looks like two of them. Marilise, Joe, Roma, David, Andrew, Yoko, Josh, George, Amelia, Giovanni, Debbie, Jackie, Paul, and more and more and more. So welcome to you all. Great to have you here. Deb says, good evening, Ian and Ritchie. Tried to get Rich to have a veggie meal tonight, cauliflower cheese, but he managed to sneak in some bacon. Good on you, Rich. That's my kind of guy. That sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? Sorry about that. Anyway, Ranjit Singh is from Property Investor News, and he says, good evening, lovely property CEOs. That's all you lot, by the way. Ranjit, Property Investor News, I don't know what I'm talking about this afternoon, says good evening, and so does Michael. Michael Scavatici says good evening to us as well. Giovanni says, hello, looking forward to the show. Jackie says, great to be here again. That must have meant she's been here before. So welcome. So pop your questions in.
Yeah, sorry, Michael didn't exactly say good evening, did he?
I know, but he does it in Italian, and I always mess that up, so I just ignore it.
No, but we quite like the bit where you mess up your Italian, because we think you're getting the hang of it. Do you want to give that one a go?
Okay, so Michael says, good evening. Let's go to our first question, and we've got a question from Peter. So Peter's question, and hopefully, Peter, I can see, I think that's you there. So Peter says, this is quite a long question actually, but it's a good one to start with. So let's kick off with this. He says, so stick with me on this, guys. This is a long question, might be a short answer, but a long question. We own a 1930s bungalow that is built on a 1.5 acre plot on the outskirts of our town. And I want to investigate, he says, the potential opportunities for development of the plot. The bungalow is quite run down as we decided not to invest in it. Couple of questions, he says. What is the likelihood that we might get planning permission for a redevelopment in light of the government's push to encourage home building? And the second question, he wants two for the price of one here. Not greedy, are you, Peter? But let's go for it. He says, what is the market like currently for self-build homes, given one potential direction might be to divide the 1.5 acre plot into self-build plots, which we could would keep for our own build. We'll keep one of them. Great stuff. Okay. Well, there's not a simple answer, Peter, to that question. You've got a 1.5 acre plot with a bungalow. Well, where is it? You know, what's around it? What's the location? You know, now let's just talk about planning when we try and answer that. Planning is about character. Okay, it's all about the character of what's going on in the area, plus Town and Country Planning Act, plus local plans, all what's, you know, what are the rules and regulations? What are the rules that local authorities have set down in their local plan? Do they want house building in that area? You know, do they want to encourage it or not encourage it? Are you within the settlement boundary, outside the settlement boundary? Are there other restrictions that they have put on those areas? Are you in Greenbelt or not? There's lots of criteria, Peter, that could come around this. And so the answer is not a simple one, not that we could give now without any other view or understanding where this is located. So what do I mean by some of those things? What's the importance of all of those? Well, first of all, all local authorities have a town plan, and they have within that plan designated areas that they want to deliver the houses within. Okay, you can look them up. They're all within the public domain. Sometimes they're a bit tricky to find on the local authority sites, but you will be able to do that, and you'll be able to search around and find out whether your plot of land, Peter, this 1.5 acre 1930s bungalow, sits within an area that has been designated for development. It might not. Okay, it might not. That doesn't mean to say you definitely can't, but if it was in it, that's a great starting point. The next thing you want to have a look at is that ground or that land or anything around it. And I've no idea whether you're surrounded by fields or what you've got around you. Is any of that designated, I don't know, areas of outstanding natural beauty? Is it designated as open land? Is it designated as greenbelt? So they might not want any further development in it. And equally, what is the character of that area? So is that a row of houses within that street or bungalows that are typically single dwellings in 1.5, 2 acre plots? If it is, then they're not going to want you to divide that into, let's be silly, 10 plots, okay, and build 10 houses, because that is completely out of character within the area. So the character argument really does come into it. And if okay, it sits, you know, within a fairly built up area, and it's just a one-off bungalow with a big plot and everything else around it. They've sold off the gardens, they've redeveloped it, they've extended here and there. There's a good chance that you might. So you can answer some of those questions yourself to understand what's around it and what might happen. Bottom line, Peter, the planning question, a planning consultant will better answer that to you pretty swiftly. Okay. Now, a lot of them will have a look at this for free. You might have to pay a couple of quid, but if you've got an opportunity here, then it might be worth it. But send them the plan, send them the location, where it is, the postcode. They will very quickly, particularly if they know that area, okay, they might not even have to look up the town plan. They will know, and they better tell you exactly what you can or can't do. I had a property once with a few acres, and we could actually develop, because we just didn't need part of it to the front of our property. Seems a bit odd, but it was a big place at the big plot of land at the front. And I was going to try and build within it. There's one that's always tempted to try and do on your own land, not much to my wife's disgust at the time, but that's what I was thinking of doing. And I thought, well, have a look at that. And I just rang up my friendly planning consultant, and he went, forget it, don't bother. You know, we were in an area protected. He says completely out of character. It's just not going to, you know, you might get it, but you got a hell of a fight on your hands, and I just won't bother. So we decided not to. A planning consultant, Peter, might put you off quite quickly, or it might encourage you. The second part of your question, what's the market currently like for self-built homes? Personally, I don't know what the encouragement is for self-built homes. I would think right now, pretty tricky. People that tend to want to do self-built homes are really passionate about it. You know, people don't tend to do that sort of thing. I don't think in a recession, people batten down the hatches. They really try and look after their monies. I think they can work. But to be fair, the bigger money for you is if you are able to go out and be a developer, understand what development's about. If you don't know, then learn and actually develop that out yourself. That's where the bigger money is. Selling individual plots off, presumably with no planning for self-builders, is not going to make you a lot of money. It can make you some, but it won't make you a fortune. Peter, hopefully that starts the evening with a good question there about your 1930s bungalow. Ian, have you got a question? Have you got a question to go?
We've got one here. Let's find it. Do you think it's best for me, as this is from Rob? Sorry, Rob. Rob asked, do you think it's better for me as a new developer to run the other professional team members, or would it be better to let the project manager run them, i.e. the whole team? What do you think to that? This is one of your favorite questions, isn't it?
Am I answering that one? Okay, I thought you were about to answer that. So I was half listening and half reading other questions as they come in. So just tell me the question again. By the way, Peter says thanks for his answer. Peter, pleasure. Go on, I'll pay attention this time.
You sure? Do you think it's best for me as a new developer to run the other professional team members, or would it be better to let the PM, the project manager, run them, i.e. the whole team? Do you feel up to that one?
From Rob. Rob, right, listen clearly, Rob, grab yourself a pen and paper, write this down. I will not, okay, because Clapson says so, I will not run the team myself. And can you write that 3,000 times, Rob? That's my answer. Why? Why do I tell you that? Because perhaps, and I mean, I caveat that, Rob, maybe you have got the experience, but even then, I'm still going to say write it 2,000 times. First of all, the majority of people that think about doing this don't have the experience. They might say, well, actually, I've got project management experience. I've been in different industry. I've been in IT. I know how to manage people, sure. The terminology and absolutely everything we do in this industry is completely different. So you probably don't have the experience in this industry. Even if you do have the industry, why do you want to do that? You know, I mean, that is time. That's exchanging time for money. You're better than that. Come on, as CEOs, you're better than that. This is what you want to do. You want to go and do something that leverages time. We talk here about leverage being the 9th wonder of the world. So leverage time, be rich in money and time. Now, rich is whatever it means to you. Rich could be just having a bit of cash in the bank to see you through difficult times. Maybe it's a Ferrari. I don't mind. No one's going to judge anyone what their values are or what they want out of life. But being rich in time is equally important. Bringing a project manager in is not that expensive compared to the overall cost of the project and ultimately the profit you get. The profit you'll get out of a project compared to the project manager's fee could be 10 times. So why do you want to sweat your time for an hourly rate to manage the project? And particularly if you don't know what you're doing. Project managers will control it. They have far better systems and processes. They do it day in and day out, and they are going to control it better for you. Equally, the banks that fund you will want to see someone with experience managing your project. They won't necessarily want to see you there. So first of all, you don't want to do it, and neither should you do it. Okay, it's just not the way you want to be. I can tell you as well, Rob, we've got some project managers that we've trained, some quantity surveyors who have absolutely got a perfect skill set to better go and do this. And even they have seen the light. You know, they took a bit of convincing. It took me swearing and shouting at them a few times, saying, no, you will not do this. And they understood about leverage. And they went, you know, yes, this is crazy. On a project here where I could earn 150,000, I'm paying someone 15,000 to run this. I just as well spend my time doing what I'm good at. And if you know how to do it, that is finding developments, finding opportunities, pulling teams together, getting the money, delivering projects. That's where you make your money. So Rob, there's your answer. You don't do it.
Yeah, see, I knew you were the right person to field that question. Straight from the soapbox. So we've got a question here from VJ, which I will have a go at. How long do you think typically a property development deal takes? Well, there is a kind of how long's a piece of string. It does obviously depend on the size of the project. When we look at small scale development, we typically use a framework of kind of 18 to 24 months. So if you'd found the deal today, then it might take you 2 to 3 months to maybe secure it and kind of complete on it. Then you've got the design phase, might take you a couple of months, 10 months to build it out on site, maybe 2 or 3 months to sell it at the end. Add that little lot up, you get pretty close to 18 months. And then there is quite often a bit of contingency there in terms of time that could work against you if anything is delayed. So if we're working in that 18 to 24 month time period, that is sensible. I would say one of the things that's quite important when you go into these property development deals, particularly when it comes to finance, making sure that you're not overconfident in terms of the and optimistic about the timescales involved, particularly when it comes to finance, because of course when your finance runs out and you need to repay it, then you can incur a whole load of issues and an additional cost if you need to refinance because your project is overrun. Far better to talk to particularly your commercial broker who will be arranging the finance for you, to kind of make sure that you've got a sensible approach there and a good dialogue with the lender about what would happen in that circumstance. And yeah, don't be too optimistic. It is quite incredible. There are certain things that, rather frustratingly, all these things have to come together in order for your project to be complete, and it only takes one of them not to work, and you can be and then you can't finish the job. You can't sell the end units. So you just need to be circumspect about it and be prudent. But 18-24 months is probably about right.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Excellent. That was VJ's, wasn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Well, actually, it's a comment. No, it's actually a question. I thought it was a comment. So Sumi's put a question in here. Actually, Sumi, you sent one in the week. So let's pick both of your questions up. Question here is, where do you get hold of a good project manager? Okay, pop down the end of the town. They normally hang around the precinct on a Friday night. You catch one there. Right, where do you find a good project manager? Let's first of all think about this and think about the process of what you're doing. Who's buying and who's selling? Okay, they're selling their services to you. So they will be out there touting their wares in the nicest possible way. If you get out to a good business network meeting or a virtual one, if that's what you've got to do at the moment, almost certainly you'll find a good business meeting in an area that's maybe got a property slant. I'm not necessarily talking about a property networking meeting. A lot of professionals do not go to what you would typically think of as property networking meetings. Go to a business property meeting in your area. You could just Google them. Go out there, look on the, what's the site that does all the meetings? I'm trying to think what that one is off the top of my head. There's a website that a lot of people put their meetings up. It'll come to me in a minute. But go on there, search for local meetings in your area. A lot of them can be free, and go along there and you will find inevitably a good project manager. Or what you will find, Sumi, is a property professional of some description. And ask them, do they know any good project managers? Ask, if you do go to property meetings, whether anyone's got a project manager, and ask who they might know. So there's a process of just asking around. Recommendations are brilliant in this business, because that might not be someone you just jump into bed with and go for, but ultimately it's a great starting point that someone's prepared to recommend someone. They've obviously had a good experience with them. So get out there, network, get some contacts, and then see how you get on. So Eventbrite, Joe's just put in Eventbrite. Thank you, Joe. She's realized I'm a man in my senior years and I forget these things. So Sumi, go on to Eventbrite. That's where you'll find it. Joe, you've saved my day there. Sumi's second question. This is an interesting question, actually. And this is Sumi, really good question. And I love the honesty in this. And I think this is really important for a lot of people. And by the way, those that are just joining us, I see Alice and David have joined us fairly recently. Questions on anything, guys, tonight, no theme. Ask us absolutely anything you want. So Sumi's next question, and I like this. It says, how long does it take to develop and sell an industrial building stroke development in a recession? Okay, that's one question. But let's answer that one first of all. This is a difficult question because you don't know. Okay, right at this minute, selling a commercial building is going to be tricky because people are getting out of them or downsizing or restructuring what they do. Selling a building that you're going to start a development on, and typically a development is going to take you 18 months or so. You know, if you're going to sell that in a year and a bit's time, so 2022, you might expect to better sell that, you know, within probably a 3-month, 4-month period on average, depending whether you're building it to there's a known requirement. That's the first part of the question. This is the second one, which I think is really interesting. How do I feed a family? How do I feed a family in the interim, assuming I have no job? Do I take on yet more debt, assuming that I have probably already remortgaged my own house and part of my own buy-to-let portfolio, or my entire buy-to-let portfolio? I may need a roof over my head, so let's leave my principal property out of it for the time being. Interesting question, and I like the honesty there, Sumi, in terms of a lot of people get sucked along in this dream. And I'm not saying you're one of them, but I think it's a good question that will actually resonate with a lot of people. And if it's not you, you might know someone out there that's done this. Development is not get rich quick. Okay, we have a lot of fun here in this show, but development is a serious business. You need to understand to do it properly. Too many people. Now, you might say, well, you're going to say it because you're an education company. Well, we do, but we give our time for free because we sincerely want people to know how serious and how much of a problem development is. Get it right, you can make a lot of money. Get it wrong, you can lose a lot of money. And it takes a lot longer than what a lot of people think. It takes a long time to get the processes in place. And that's even with education. We take on a full program. We've been training this week for 3 days. We've got some of our students on tonight. Actually, Mary-Lise is on. She's been with us all day. She's going to be with us for the next 2 days. You'll be fed up with us, Mary-Lise, by come Saturday night. We've got a 3-day event on at the moment. And what people like Mary-Lise will find is we're giving them heaps of information, but we're going to scratch the surface of what we do on our 6-month mentorship. And even on our 6-month mentorship, people are still learning when they go away. So often it can take you 6 months to really understand everything and then get things going, find opportunities. And it's not just finding it, it's securing it. You might bid on 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 before you get somewhere. You might have to put 100 deals in the funnel to get 1 out at the bottom. So all these things take time. And one of the questions that we ask people when we talk about training people, and I think it's just worth sharing with you, Sumi, and this make a lot of people think. Our 6-month program that we take people on is by invite only. And the reason we do that is that we don't want people to start a journey that they can't finish. Okay. And one of the questions we ask them is, can you afford to financially survive whilst you're on this program? Because some people give up on everything just to go for it. I had a guy on the phone a month or 2 ago who said, I'm really going to go for this development. I want to sign up. Where do I sign? I said, we haven't even told you how much it is. But okay, it's out there. You can find out how much it is. You go on our website. It's all there. But maybe he'd done that. But he didn't know anything about us. We didn't know anything about him. Not really, because we haven't had a chat. And then I asked him a couple of questions. And he said, I've got 6 months redundancy. I've got to do this. I've got to get the money in. And I said to him, well, I'm sorry, my friend, but I can't help you. He said, well, you train people. I said, yeah, but I can't train you in 6 months. Well, he said, look, I'm a quick learner. I'm going to crack on. I said, no, even if my first part of my program is 2 months, you are not going to find a project, secure it, design it, tender it, build it, sell it in the remaining 4. And I said, I can't help you. And actually, he thanked me at the end, but he said, what do you suggest I do? I said, in the nicest possible way, go away, find out how you can actually sustain yourself, so get some money behind you. And that isn't just getting debt. There's a difference between good and bad debt. What you're talking about there, Sumi, sounds like bad debt to me, if you're not careful. I'm not saying don't speculate to accumulate, but certainly don't mortgage yourself up to the hilt. You've got to feed your family. You've got to make sure you're in a secure position. Yes, it's a cracking time at the moment, but if it's not right for you, then you will fail. So go away, get some money behind you, get yourself, and think about how you can do that. Get yourself in a better position financially, and then give yourself some time to say, right, I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to go for it. So certainly we do not encourage people to borrow up to the hilt, whack it onto credit cards, anything like that. If you can afford to, that's fine. But can you afford to? If you can't, don't overcommit yourself. Sumi, hopefully that answers that question. That was a nice, honest question there. So that was a good one. So hopefully that's good.
Fantastic. Okay, we've got one here from, who's this from? This is from Josh. I was told by someone that you should always expect to spend the contingency figure. What do you say to that? Well, Josh, I think so. The contingency is basically the money that you include within a project in case you need it. The amount varies, but it's normally a material amount of money. I think the view there would be you need to treat it not as something that will always get spent. For sure, inevitably, there are likely to be more unexpected costs and unexpected benefits coming from a program. Quite clearly, in any development, it tends to work that way, and that's exactly why the contingency is there. But I think the job of the developer is really to protect it. It's not to think, well, we've had a problem, this unexpected cost have come out, but it's all right because I've got this contingency sitting here, and we can dip into that. The thing to do, it should be an emergency fund. It should be something that you've got the capacity to be able to absorb a bump in the road. without actually thinking, right, well, here, have some money, I can fix it. Because take that approach, and frankly, your contingency could be gone within the first 5 minutes of the project. And you certainly don't want other people in your team to think that that's okay. So I would say what you definitely shouldn't do is think this deal doesn't quite stack up. What I'll do is I'll trim my contingency from 10% down to 5%, and look at that, the numbers now work, off we go. You need to be protected against those bumps in the road. The contingency there is for a very good reason. It is almost inevitable that we use some of it, but try and protect it. Try and keep hold of it. It's rainy day money, not stuff that should go out just in terms of additional fees. And certainly don't be tempted to trim it down just to make your numbers work. Hopefully, Josh, that helps.
Great stuff. Sumi's question I answered, he said, thanks, Richard. I thought you'd say that. Good. Well, that's good. Great minds think alike. Andrew's put a question in, and Andrew says, based on what you just said regarding development taking a long time, is the 6-month training period you offer enough time to get properly trained? Well, yes, it is, and it isn't, okay, because you're always learning. And I think the thing is, Andrew, it's important how you learn. I don't quite know what other people do, but the way that we teach people is we teach you to run a company, hence the name Property CEO. We teach you to be the CEO of a company. You cannot possibly learn everything in 6 months. In fact, you won't learn it in 6 years, Andrew. In fact, you probably won't learn it in 60 because you're still learning. Now, I've been around in this industry nearly 40 years, and there's lots of things I don't know, okay? What is horrifying is there are often people out there with 4 or 5 years experience who think they know everything that's going on, but they don't, because in that time you've only seen 1 or 2 developments, maybe 3, maybe 4 if you're absolutely lucky running things in parallel. The point is about being a CEO is that if you work at the right level, you surround yourself with the right structure that we teach people, and this is about project managers and non-exec advisors, we'll be touching on some of these things this evening, then that is massively important, okay, to have that safety net around you. And you are running as a business. Think of the analogy of the cabinet minister that gets shuffled around by Boris. And I know there's another question on here about Boris. He's in twice tonight. Think about that. You're in charge of health, and you're in charge of, coronavirus, vaccines, hospitals, beds, and medicine. And Boris does a reshuffle and he throws you over to defence. And now you've got tanks and guns and army and soldiers and all these things. How do they learn all that stuff? How did they learn all that stuff about health? Well, the reality is they didn't, not to a large extent. They had enough to know what was going on, but their skill set as ministers is running a ministerial department. They're acting as CEOs almost in charge of their departments. And that's what we teach people to do. Yes, we teach you a massive amount. And the other part of it one could answer to is that actually when we teach people, there's a huge amount crammed in. And one of the things is, have you got time to actually learn? But we give you lifetime access to the learning because a lot of it is recorded online. It's a complete bespoke, coordinated program that you have to go through in a certain order, but you're going to have to go through it again. And some sections you're almost certainly going to have to go through again. And that will mean you keep going back to them, maybe in 2 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time, you think, oh my word, there was, because that problem's not come up on this particular development over the last 10 years, but now it has. What did the guys say about that? I remember there was something on that type of contractual arrangement, which I've not done before. So you are always learning, Andrew, in this industry. So no, you can't learn everything in 6 months. But what you can do is you can learn how to be the CEO, and you can learn enough about all the things you need to do to start your business. But when we point people into starting their business, we point them in a very certain direction. Mary-Lise will know this from today. We were starting to home in on telling you the sort of projects we tell you to go for your first development, to get your learning up and running. But the answer is you are always learning.
I think the other thing to add to that is about also building a team. You don't want to have a training company that you have to keep coming back to 5 years, 10 years down the line. You want to be able to get to a point where you've built a team that is able to give you the answers. Property development is massively leveraged. You can get decades and centuries of expertise on a team around you. You need to know as a CEO a certain amount, but a lot of the heavy lifting is done by a team of people that have all that experience. So at the end of the day, where you end up is in a place where we aim to get people is in a place where they have access to the answers through their team. But of course, they've got to get to that point, and we are the springboard that makes that part happen. I've got a question here from Adir, who asks, what is the best way of convincing professionals to join your team if you've no development experience? And I think that's quite a common question, Adir, I'll be honest. And it probably sort of harks back to quite a few questions all about, if you've got no experience in development, how can you make things happen? There is a kind of the sense of it, I guess, when it comes to professionals, at the end of the day, they are entirely reliant on new developers for the growth and the sustainability of their business, because all the old developers will eventually die out and there'll be no developers left. So there is always going to be an influx of new developers coming into the market. And I think we're certainly seeing there's likely to be a much bigger influx, I think, over the next few years, given some of the changes that are happening in the market and given some of the focus that the government seems to be placing on development, on house building, and in particular working on some of these smaller scale projects. The trick, if you can imagine, from a professional's perspective, whether that's we're talking here about a project manager or an architect or a cost consultant and so on, they've got to kind of sort of sort the wheat from the chaff when it comes to developers. There'll be, as a new developer, there'll be some people who they'll do like free quotes for, and they'll go out on site and they'll have conversations with, and meetings and so on. And then after a while, they might be thinking, well, do you know what, that's the 5th job I've done for that person, sort of pro bono. They don't seem to be any closer to getting a deal. So actually, I think I'm going to put their jobs to the bottom of the pile. Equally, there are some people who could turn up on the doorstep and they think, you know what, this person really doesn't strike me as somebody that's taking development seriously or knows enough to be able to kind of make it work. And so as a result, I don't think it's worth me spending a great deal of time or effort certainly doing work for free for them, because I'm not seeing that there's going to be a long-term payback. I'm not sure they'll be successful. So critically, the key is to make sure that as a new developer, that your credibility is robust. Now, how do you do that? There's lots of ways in which you can do that, even if you've never developed a single property before, because of course, we've just been talking about how your team has actually developed, funny enough, lots of projects, lots of buildings, lots of developments. And that team is now working for you. And also, if we look at the skills that you need to be a developer, those skills are skills that are broadly generic. So yes, there is definitely some specific knowledge that you need, but you're also leveraging skills that are generally fairly broad. You know, organizational skills, business skills, management, people skills, decision-making skills, skills that a lot of people use in their everyday life and in their everyday business. So when it comes then to presenting yourself and your business, there's quite a lot of stuff there to leverage. I think the tendency can be for new developers to kind of zero in on what they perceive as their Achilles heel, which is, this is my first development. The reality is, when you take a step back and one of the things we teach people to do is to present the truth, but to present it in the best possible light. So you're getting the maximum credibility, and we're leveraging all of the credibility that's around us, not just from our history, but also from our extended professional team as well. But there always needs to be new people coming into development. Otherwise, as I said, all the old developers will just die out and no new houses will ever get built again.
Okay, there you go. Andrew says, thank you, Ritchie and Ian. Andrew, and this applies to anyone, if you want to understand all the processes and steps, just pop onto our website, go to the training tab, go onto the mentorship program. There's a prospectus on there. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but I'm just saying, have a look at it. If you want to understand, that tells you everything that we teach people. It gives you a good feel for what's involved. And we talk about the 8 pillars. And I know some of you on here are students who work with us, they know what we talk about with 8 pillars. But if you're new to development, have a look on there. It might be of interest to you. Okay. Mansour says, hello, Ian and Ritchie, nice to see you after a gap. Oh, you've been away. Just a comment. Oh, he's got a comment. I don't know what this comment is. I have done some extension work previously, but I have found training from propertyCEO about conversion creating teams to leverage, block planning. This is a pitch for us, I think. Block planning, feasibility sheets, very helpful. From this month, I have noticed more and more properties under Class E, retail and offices, have started to appear for sale. Absolutely. And due to the training, I feel very confident about my desktop research before bidding my offers. It's a statement. It's just a statement. Mansour, that's great. I think the interesting thing out of that from Mansour is he is noticing a lot more opportunities coming to the markets. That's really good. There's no question there, but that's quite nice. A nice statement. I'm glad you like what we've done, and I'm glad you're being successful. Raj's question here, and this one was about Boris. I saw this just now. He says, "Hello, A-team." It's always, if you put A-team in there, we tend to try and answer them. You know, can't answer everything in an evening, but we tend to. No favoritism, but A-team does help. Obviously, if you actually say good evening, Ritchie, and then Ian, if you do it that way round, I tend to answer them as well. Good to see you, he says. Could you please squash or confirm a rumour whether permitted development is here to stay for a while, or is Parliament considering overturning it, making Boris do yet another U-turn? Should we be careful? Oh, political. I actually think it's here to stay. I think the problem, Raj, is I mean, the government are trying to do what they think is right to to facilitate the delivery of housing in this country, which we're massively short of, and that's not been helped by COVID. There is lots of questions, and there are some challenges that the government are facing that they have pushed through without the appropriate procedures. A lot of stuff on permitted development rights at the moment. I suspect there'll be challenges on some of those, and inevitably some things will change. Okay, I think the problem has been with all sorts of things that some people abuse things. So some of the permitted development rights have been abused by people that were building very substandard properties, no windows and so on, and that's not a right thing to do. We don't encourage that. I don't condone any of that. And that's why this thing about space standards is coming in, and that's not a problem. You know, that's a level playing field for everyone. Just makes you think out the box a bit more, which is great. But I think the permitted development rights will be here to stay. I actually think, Raj, some of the newer ones that's come in, which is the ability to demolish and rebuild, the ability to put extra floors on, I think some of those are going to be tightened up a little bit more, because there are lots of grey areas in those where the planning officer has the ability to really judge almost everything about that permitted development right. The right that you have is to do it. You don't have the right to make it look how the hell you want. Okay, you've got to deliver it and make it look in the right way, but you definitely have the ability to do it. So I think some of those might get tweaked and strengthened and tied up a little bit more. I think provided we as developers do the right things, I think the office conversion market and the retail market is definitely here for a while, or it'd be changed and come up in a different format. I think one thing is for sure, that this government, like many others, will be absolutely certain that they need to help housing market. Okay, they want to help the housing market, and they want to help young developers, young and not necessarily in age, I mean young in terms of companies, do small developments. It's not the bigger developers that are going to deliver this. Okay, it is basically younger companies that are going to go and do this. So I think they will encourage us. So I think they're here to stay in some format. I don't know. No one knows. Watch this space. Always have lots of options. Always be looking in lots of areas for projects. Okay, let me do a quick one here from Alice. Good evening, Alice. She says, "Hi guys. Any chance to get around a TPO in a conservation area?" A tree preservation order, that is. You could chop it down at night, but no, you'll probably go to prison. No, don't. That, Alice, that's a joke.
There's something that will get edited out.
Yeah. Alice, it can be a real problem. I mean, if a TPO has been put on a tree and it's in a conservation area, I think the chances are it's probably there to stay. Okay, and there will be people that will say, "Oh, drive some nails in it and it dies off naturally." No, you know, the conservation officers and the planning officers, they're not stupid. They're wise to all of those things. They would have inspected that tree. They'll be aware what's going on. And should someone try and drive some copper nails into it, or whatever you're supposed to do, they'll soon catch out. And don't be surprised if there's CCTV and you get caught out. You know, you're leaving your fingerprints on the nails or something. And you know, it's there for a reason. You know, if that tree has got a TPO on it, it's probably there for a reason. Sometimes it's not. I mean, what one can say, if you've got a development and there are a lot of trees that you need to get rid of and they haven't got TPOs on it, you want to think about which order you do things. Do you ask whether they have got TPOs on it? If they haven't, because they either have or they haven't. It's categorically, it's black and white. They either have or they haven't. So your question is, should these trees have TPOs? Well, I can tell you the answer normally is yes, and there's one on it now, and they can stop you. So what a lot of people will say is actually, if there's no TPO on it and you want it gone, then chop it down. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally legal. Chop it down. Don't ask the question that you know the answer is going to come back and they're going to go, oh no, there should be a TPO on that. I think though, if you've got a TPO in a conservation area, Alice, I think unfortunately you're stuck with it. Don't resort to other terms to get rid of it. There's enough opportunities out there for developers to do things the right way. And I always say to people, at the moment, it's no different to, there's going to be some cracking deals, but don't take advantage of someone. You get a good deal, but don't screw someone into the ground. Because personally, I think that eats people up. It just eats you all up inside. Be good, do to others what you expect to be done to you. And I think as a business person, that just sees you through in life. Karma's a wonderful thing, but it just sees you through. So I think, unfortunately, Alice, you're maybe stuck with a tree. Maybe put some lights on it and see how that goes. Alice says, thank you, smiley face. Thought the same as well. Just double check with you.
Good but thanks for the hot tips on how to get rid of it. Excellent.
Yvonne's just added in. Yvonne's actually one of our students. She's actually an architect that we're training. So good to have you on tonight, Yvonne. She says, please note that all trees in the conservation area require permission to be cut down or trimmed, even without a TPO. Good point. Yeah. Good point to add in. She's almost telling me off because she put an exclamation mark on the end of that. Well done, Yvonne. I just wanted to see if you're awake. Can I answer this question from Jo? Because she sent this in the week, and people that send them in beforehand, we like to get these in. And Jo is on this evening, and then we'll pick up another one because they're coming in thick and fast, so we won't get through everyone. But let's do Jo's. Jo says, if one of your exit strategies from a development is to retain some units and rent them out, what are the implications if purchasing in an SPV, special purpose vehicle that is? Does it have to close when the development is completed? And if so, is there a stamp duty liability to move the properties out into another associated company? I love these people when they ask one question and they tack another one on the end. Okay. Well, first of all, most of this is a tax question, and I'm not an accountant. Okay, and you, Jo, you probably know that, but she's going to ask me just to test me, see if I got any idea. Well, first of all, the SPV doesn't have to close. It is a limited company. Okay, and you can keep that going, you can hold it, you can do whatever you want with it. So the limited company can stay. It's a special purpose vehicle. It's set up for that business. Depends who owns it, what the ownership is, and do both parties want to stay within that? Okay, or is one party leaving? Is it, if it's a joint venture, who holds the SPV? How is that controlled? Are there any other implications around it when you set it up? But in theory, there's no reason why you can't have an SPV and hold it long term and hold within that properties that you want to keep out of that development. Now, the thing you've got to, the two things here, they sort of link together. The thing you've got to think of, is that the best place to hold that property? So if you hold that property and then maybe you hold other property, how do you want to hold your portfolio? What else have you got going on? Have you got a trading business? Have you got a development business? Have you got other interests going on? How should your whole business be structured? So there's a much bigger question here, and it links with this question. Does it have to close? If so, is there stamp duty, etc.? Moving them from another associated company, moving properties around into different companies or any asset to that extent depends what you call associated. If you've got a group holding company, and by the way, please, I'm not an accountant, so I'm just going to give you some principles, and you need to discuss this. Anyone, and particularly you, Jo, you need to discuss this with your accountant. But ultimately, if you've got a group holding company, depending on how that's set up, okay, it's all to do with share structure. I think it's like 75% control or something like that. But there is a share structure that you have to it. And is it a proper group subsidiary company or not? There are various rules around it. But providing it's set up in the right way, and the group holding company owns the SPV, you should be able to move the asset, which in this case is a property, up to the group holding company. Certainly no implication from stamp duty, hopefully, because you're not selling it. But the other important thing is capital gains tax. Okay, so stamp duty might be just a small proportion. You've got to think about CGT. So moving something around and then crystallizing the gain, you've got to think about how that works, okay, and profits and so on. So the bottom line is you need to speak to your accountant. And this is the important thing about property and knowing what you want to do out of the blocks, getting your company set up right. For if you say, well, I didn't know I was going to do this, that's fine. Now you've got to tackle it now. But if you think at the beginning, I might want to hold something, I might not. Think about the structure and the setup. Maybe you've not set this up, okay? Sumi says 75% control is correct. No gain, no loss, i.e. no capital gains tax. Yeah, good luck, must be an accountant. Capital gains tax liability if you transfer property from one SPV to another. Yeah, if you transfer from one SPV to another, but hopefully not a group holding company. So Sumi's obviously an accountant there, presumably, but don't take that advice. He's not actually officially advising you because you haven't paid him any money, Joe. Maybe they will, I don't know, but you've got to have a proper contract there. So the bottom line is, yes, you should be able to do it, but make sure you've got it set up right. Go and have some advice from your accountant. Okay, I think we've more or less done most of your questions. Let's just see if there's any quick one. Probably no quick ones in there that I think we can deliver this evening, guys. And we are over 1:45. We always like to make sure we wrap up. Hopefully you found that of interest. Any final words, Ian, to say before we sign off?
I quite enjoyed that. I like to see you get a bit animated on some of your pet subjects. So I think we might be doing another one of these Ask Us Anything shows again quite soon. We've certainly got some questions to carry over. So yeah, we look forward to picking those up.
Guys, give us a wave if you want us to do another one of these, completely random, Ask Us Anything. Give us a wave if you do. Yes, a few hands gone up. Oh, actually, nearly all the hands, nearly all. Just a couple, not. Okay, we'll do that. Maybe we'll do another one next week or something. Maybe we'll do an Ask Us Anything next week. We love bringing guests on, but we equally like doing it ourselves. So we always try and mix it up. We don't have a rhythm that every other week we have a guest. So yeah, we'll do another one of these maybe next week. Well, I'll tell you what, let's guarantee it. We haven't got a guest lined up for next. We haven't got anyone booked in that I'm going to dismiss, have we?
I don't think so. No.
If we have, they're off the agenda.
We might have. Yeah, hold that thought.
They're off the agenda. I'll tell you what, guys. Look, let's dump them. We'll put them the week after if we've got them. They don't mind.
Yeah, and if you're watching, we're very sorry.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, guys, please pop in the chat box. Let us know if you've enjoyed the show. We always like it if you put the comments in there. We give up our time this evening. We've been training all day, but we love doing this evening. It's a bit of fun. I'm not to say we didn't like the training, by the way. People like Mary Lisa are on. We did enjoy your time today, and we'll see you in the morning. But we do enjoy this show, and it's you guys that make the difference for us. So pop in the chat box if you'd like to as we sign off. Next show, obviously, is next week, which is the Thursday the 26th, the same time, 7 o'clock. Please come and join us then. And if necessary, bring a friend. And, of course, let us know in the meantime if there's any guests that you'd like on board or anything you'd like us to chat about. That would be great. Good stuff. Excellent. Well, people are putting in as we're disappearing. So let's have a look, see what's going on. Sarah says, great show. Thank you very much. Thoroughly enjoyed it this evening. Karen says, love Ask Me Anything. I'm going to ask you something next week. Okay, well, Karen, we look forward to that. George says, great show. Will says, thank you, 18. Giovanni says, terrific. Debbie says, I put a bit of accent on there. I don't know why I did that. Giovanni says, terrific. And Debbie says, that's good. Look forward to seeing you next time. Adair says, thanks for the answer. Paul says, good night. Having an early night now. See you next week. Okay, Paul. Good night, everyone. Have fun. See you next week. Bye-bye.